What's up, guys? Hopefully you all had a good day yesterday. It is Monday again, the start of a new week. So I thought I'd do a little video today talking about all of the trouble and everything that happened last year with the threats and everything that so obviously I went down to, obviously I made last year, so obviously I was asked to go down to the police station in December for a voluntary interview. Now I wasn't arrested or anything put behind bar or put, in the cells or anything like that. I was asked to go down for a voluntary interview, so we went down there. Ended up being asked to go back another day because they couldn't get a solicitor. So we went back another day, and we were asked to go away for an hour and then come back because the solicitor was running late. So we went off for an hour. We went down to McDonald's, had a hot drink and everything, and then went back to the police station so that we could do the interview. Obviously, they showed me all of the evidence, of the threats that, as obviously I'd made threats to the inhams, but I also sent a few threatening emails to the Honey Jolies as well. And they showed me the evidence, and obviously the solicitor was there. Um, Obviously, at one point we had to leave the room so that the solicitor could speak on her own with the police officer. He was doing the interview, and then after a little while, we went back in and we sat there on our own, and the police officer left the room so that the solicitor could speak to me on my own. Um, and asked me, obviously we went through it, obviously we did a statement that she agreed, so obviously I did a statement that she agreed to the police officer, and then obviously he did the interview, was asking me, different questions, like, um, you know, did I feel any remorse, for sending these threats? Was I planning to act out on any of these threats or carry out any of the threats that I had made towards them or anything like that? And I just responded no comments for every question, which is what I was advised to do by my solicitor. She advised me to reply to every question with no comments. That's what I did. Um, he actually said, obviously, at the end of the interview, he said that a decision would be made within that week, and that I would either get a phone call to go down and collect my portion, or I would receive a letter in the post with a date for a court appearance. Now, we are 5, 6 months down the line, and as of time of recording, no decision has yet been made as to whether this is going to be settled out of court or whether I'm going to have to go to court. We've not heard a dicky bird. They've asked us to send in a lot of paperwork and things like that. Proof of disabilities, all that sort of thing. We've sent all that in. Medical reports, all that kind of thing. That's all been sent in. But still, we're in June. I went to the police station for for the voluntary interview in December, and the fact, and it makes me laugh because the police officer had even said that a decision would be made within that week, within the week, and that I would either get that phone call to go and collect the portion, or they would send me a letter in the post with a date for a court appearance. We still haven't received anything. We still don't know what the decision actually is or what the decision has been made. We've received no updates on that from either the police or from the solicitor. We've not heard any. They've not said, well, this is the decision. This, that, and the other. It would be good to sort of know what the decision is either way, just for peace of mind, because we've still got this hanging over us, and it's like, more and more times going past, and we've still not heard anything. It's like, it just feels strange that we've not heard anything yet. from them in relations to what the final decision is going to be. So I mean, yeah, it's a bit it's a bit hard, but we'll see what happens anyway. Hopefully, obviously, as soon as I get that information, I will let you guys know what the outcome was, and obviously what um the decision what decision was made by by the Metropolitan Police. Um, oh well, you know what? Right, it's one thing that's always gotten to me. Now, they obviously, you guys will know that there was death threat. Lady, Ruby. Obviously, you guys will know that there were that there were death threats made to. Obviously, I sent the death threats towards the Inghams. They've also claimed that there were rape threats sent towards the girls as well, or made towards the girls, and that I was the one to blame for these rape threats. I'm Ruby. Obviously, I wanted to confirm that I was not the one that sent the rape threats. At the end of the day, I don't know why. I think the reason that people think it had something to do with me is like they think, oh well, if I was the one that sent the death threats, and then I must be the one who also made the rape threats. Now, I can assure you, those rape threats, if if they're actually genuine, which obviously, as this is coming from the Inhams, I do kind of find it hard to believe, and I'm actually questioning. That's why I'm actually questioning if there were actually any sort of rape threats that were made towards the girls, because I feel like the Inhams are definitely the sort of people that would lie about something like that. They would definitely, they're definitely the sort of people that would make something like that up. But they're very adamant that these rape threats do exist, and they're very adamant that I was the one that made these rape threats. And the thing that I want to know is what evidence do they have that proves that I was the one that sent them and made these rape threats. Because at the end of the day, there's no evidence that proves I had anything to do with that. You know, I've not been questioned by the police in relation to these rape threats, which I'm pretty sure I would have been. I'm pretty sure when I went down for that formal interview, for that voluntary interview in December, surely then the police officer would have asked me questions about these rape threats. But I was not. There was no. I was not questioned. I'm not being questioned at all in relation to that, nor have I been charged with anything in relation to that. So surely if that had, if there was evidence that proves it was me, surely I would have been questioned by the police on that. Surely I probably would even have been locked up and charged, and probably would have been locked up behind bars for that. To be honest. I mean, obviously, I'm in no way saying that I was innocent with it. Obviously, the fact that a decision hasn't been made with relations to the death threats proves I'm innocent. Obviously, we just don't know. Obviously, we know that obviously I will face some kind of disciplinary action, but what that disciplinary action is, we just don't know yet. I think it has always gotten to me the fact that people believe. I mean, I family always believed that I was the one that sent the rape threats. Sarah keeps saying it was me. But what I want to know is what evidence there is that proves it was me. Like what evidence they have. This is what I want to know. Is do they have evidence of what they're accusing me of? Do they have evidence that proves that I was the one that made those rape threats towards the girls? Because if the thing is, right, if it was me that had made those rape threats, I think I would be able to know. I think I would be able to remember that. But I know that's not something I can remember. I know all about the death threats. I've held my hands up and admitted to that because yeah, I know I did. Because I did what I did. I held my hands up and said that, and I know that I did what I did. And admitted that I did what I did, and admitted that I knew what I did was wrong. But I have never and will never hold my hands up and admit that I was the one that made the rape threats. Because at the end of the day, I know in my heart of heart that I had absolutely nothing to do with those rape threats that were made towards the girls. And that is me telling the truth. You know, if I had actually made those rape threats, I wouldn't be sat here lying about it, saying that I hadn't done that. If that was something to do with me, I would have held my hands up and admitted to that a long time ago. You know, but the reason that I've done videos about this, obviously in the past, and even said in those videos that I didn't do that, I didn't send any, that I didn't make any rape threats, is because I know that that's the truth. I know I didn't do that. And people need to stop believing that I was the one that made those rape threats, because there is no evidence that proves that. If there was, at the end of the day, if there was evidence that had proved that proved that, I would say fair enough. I also think it's somewhat strange that if those rape threats had anything to do with me, why have I not been questioned by the police in relation to that? But surely I would have been. Surely if those rape threats were made by me, or I'd had something to do with that, or I was involved in making those rape threats, surely the police would have questioned me on that. But the fact that the police have not questioned me at all on that kind of proves that I obviously had nothing to do with it. The fact that the police have not made it, that the police have not charged me with relations to any rape threats, they've not questioned me in relations to that, shows that there is not, is because there is a lack of evidence. There is not, there is no evidence out there, no real evidence out there that proves that I had anything to do with any rape threats that were made. Yeah, there is proof of the death threats, but there is certainly no proof of me being connected to these rape threats that were made. You know, I'll say that I'll say that here and now. And I'll keep saying that because it's true. I don't care if the IFAM don't believe me. I don't give a shit. But what I'm here to say is there's no evidence that proves I made those rape threats. The police have not questioned me in relation to that. I have not been charged with making any rape threats. I'm not, which I dare say proves that I had nothing. The fact that the police have not questioned me in relation to these rape threats proves I had nothing to do with that. You know, it's like at the end of the day, those are the facts. The facts are the police have not specifically questioned me in relation to any rape threats that were made. The only thing that they questioned me on is the death threats. That's the only thing I've been questioned in relation is in relations to that. I've not been questioned at all in relations to any rape threats that were made, and I can guarantee you that. You know, I have to say, there is one person that I've always been really grateful for. Now, obviously, you guys would be aware, would probably know that I was doxxed by the Inghams. Obviously, after everything with the death threats came out, they doxed me, and that resulted in me getting constant phone calls and abusive text messages from their iFam. Basically, constantly, basically calling me all sorts of nasty, horrible things. Obviously, because because Sarah had put my number out there, so I was now getting all sorts of, I was getting constant phone calls and constant abusive text messages from their iPhone, you know, and to me, yeah, I admit what I did was wrong, but them doxing me was just as wrong, it was just as bad, you know. But at the end of the day, doxing someone is never okay or accepted. I know they think that what they did was okay. I know they think that doxing me was the right thing to do. But I had to sue. I had to take legal action. I had to take action against them for that. You know, I still feel like taking some kind of legal action against them. Because they keep saying that I was the one that made the rape threats when there's no evidence that proves it was me, and the police have also not questioned me in relation to that. So they need to stop saying that it was me that sent the rape threats. The police have not questioned me in relation to that, and there is no evidence that proves that. You know, so if they don't want me to take legal action, then they need to stop saying that I was the one that made those rape threats. You know, because they need to stop. Well, at the end of the day, they need to stop saying that until they prove that they prove that they actually have evidence that actually confirms that I was the one that made those rape threats. Because I know I didn't do that. If I knew I had done that, would I be sitting here saying I didn't do it? No. If I knew that I had done that, as I said before, if I knew that I had done that, I would have held my hands up and admitted to that a very long time ago. I wouldn't be sitting here now, still sitting here now saying, "Oh, I didn't do it." Those rape threats, had nothing to do with me if they had had anything to do with me. Simple as that. So as I said, the one person that I was grateful for was Doodle. Obviously, he kind of reached out to me after I was stopped by the to make sure that I was okay. And I appreciated that, the fact that, Doodle didn't have to do that, he didn't have to reach out to me to see if I was okay. But the fact that he took it upon himself to do that shows that, shows what sort of decent, caring person Doodle actually is. And it shows how he is Doodle is a very caring person, and at the end of the day, I'll always be so grateful to him for the fact that he reached out to me, and was kind of showing me that support in a way. I mean, he wasn't completely defending what I did, but it was still nice, that it was still nice that, in amongst all of these, abusive text messages that I was getting from the IFAM and, the constant phone calls, I actually was getting some, messages from people making sure that I was okay. Doodle was one of them. And I will never not appreciate that. He was like a friend to me, at that time. I will also always be really, really grateful to him for the fact that he opened my eyes to Sullivans and made me realise just how bad they were as well. I just wish that there was a way that I could actually repay Doodle for that kindness that he showed me around that time. And the fact that he had, he took, he done, he did that because he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to reach out to me to see if I was okay. But the fact that he did that is something I'll always be grateful for, and something I wish I could repay him for doing that. You know, um, but as I said, the fact it just really, really gets to me the fact that some people believe that I was the one that sent those rape threats. Chris and Sarah keep saying it was me that sent them when there is no evidence that proves that. At the end of the day, that's all I'm gonna say. Is they have no evidence whatsoever that proves I had anything to do with these rape threats that were made. Um, and if they do have evidence, then what evidence do they have? That's what I'd like to know. If they're saying it was me, then they must have some kind of evidence that proves that. Because this is the thing. They should be saying it was me if they have no evidence to prove it was me. Which they don't have any evidence to prove it was me. Because I did not make those threats to rape the girls. Simple as that. As I said, the police have not questioned me in relation to those rape threats. I think that proves the point there. The fact that the police haven't even questioned me in relation to these rape threats, that kind of proves the point, to be honest. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this little video of what I want to give my thoughts on that. I'll see you for another video soon. Bye bye.